physically, Haitians suffer a lot just getting basic necessities like water and food. I've seen people in their 30s with blood pressure of 220 over 150.
But I also feel a desire just to reach out to our brothers and sisters around the world and love them and just help them in a way that we're able to.
Thank you for joining Mercy Today. How do mercy and compassion break down barriers and change everything? How do they bring hope? Be inspired as our guests share about the life-changing, soul-impacting work through the ministry of Mercy, Inc. and its partners. Here's your host, Dr. Dan Pritchett.
I'm very happy to welcome you to another episode of Mercy Today. We get to tell the world about the great work of Mercy, Inc., the compassionate services that they do around the world. People are devoting their lives to serving God and helping people, and it's just a fantastic organization. I'm just honored to be able to speak so people can hear what good things Mercy and its partners are up to. Today, we're going to go back to Haiti. We're going to go to the eastern tip of Cuba, around the Guantanamo area, if you know where that is. We're going to jump in the water and by boat or swimming, go about 90 miles if my measurements are correct. Could be a little bit less than that, but there we'll find thousands of people struggling in life. Everything is in short supply: food and water and electricity, housing, security, all of that. And many of them desperately in need of medical attention. That's where we pick it up, because God has an outpost there. It has been there for a long time. And things are developing, and a new building is being put up, and there's a lot of good stuff going on. But in that outpost, that is Bethesda Medical Center, is a partner of Mercy, Inc., and people there being the hands and feet of Jesus. So we're going to walk in the front door of Bethesda, and we're going to find out what's going on. The topic for today is called Bethesda, Caring for the Body and the Soul. So, listener, I want to welcome you to the discussion, invite you to lean in, open your heart, listen with your ears, and listen all the way through, because really interesting stuff comes up all the way through. And then we have a little bit of a feature afterwards on the podcast-only portion, and that is the afterwards. And we kind of shut the clock off, and we talk a little bit more about some of the things that have come up on the actual episode itself. So zooming in today is Barry Yungblut from Ontario, Canada, and Julie Edler coming to us from Northern Ireland. And so happy to have you both here. And they've joined us on a previous episode. And if you haven't heard that one, you want to go to our website or to your podcast hosting service. The previous one was called God is at Work in This Haitian Medical Center. So they are both back to join us for this episode. Bethesda, Caring for the Body and the Soul. Barry and Julie, thank you again so much for coming back in, and let's kind of pick up where we left off and go in some new directions. Are we ready for that? Ready, Barry?
I'm all set, Dan.
Okay, and Julie, you're ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, so Julie, let me start with you on this one. I'd like you to tell us about the general physical well-being of the Haitian people. We might have covered that in another segment, but for this episode, right at the top, what is the general physical well-being of the Haitian people?
Yeah, sure. Really, physically, Haitians suffer a lot. Just getting basic necessities like water and food is very difficult. The diet is very poor, so the food has a lot of oil and a lot of salt in it, which leads to a lot of medical problems. A lot of people have heart disease. I think is the number one cause of mortality in Haiti. Diabetes, high blood pressure, and strokes. And because of the lack of access to good health care, oftentimes these illnesses get worse and worse and worse before they're treated. So really, physically, people really suffer a lot. And even if you do work, the work is very physically demanding in the hot sun, leading to a lot of pain and problems like that. So just very difficult.
And that's the standard. I mean, that's the normal in Haiti. Is that what you described? Would that be right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. A lot of people have high blood pressure. I mean, I've seen people in their 30s with blood pressure of 220 over 150, which is very high.
Yeah. So of those medical issues that you talked about, Does the clinic specialize in any of those, or do you cover all of those? Do you have different ways of treating each of the things that you mentioned?
Yeah, we have a number of different clinics that run. We have a HIV/AIDS clinic, a tuberculosis clinic, high blood pressure clinic, diabetes clinic. We also have a malnutrition clinic, which I didn't talk about there. We have general consultation where we see people with just infections, respiratory disorders, malaria. We also have then an antenatal clinic, maternity and vaccine program. We have a dental clinic as well. We have X-ray, and where I work in physical therapy. And in physical therapy, what we see mostly is strokes, neurological problems, and kids with special needs, which there's really no resources for at all in the north of Haiti, anywhere where we're situated.
Yeah, that is a lot. That just sounds to me like a huge undertaking. Barry, you're kind of orchestrating that as the chairman of the board of the center. So how about from your perspective, is this expanding and pretty exciting because, God and his people are doing more and more work, or is it really kind of a difficult thing?
Well, just let me clarify something, Dan. As the current chair of the board, our focus is really on our relocation project. So as far as the clinic operations, Dr. Rodney is responsible for that. And I've only been there a short time, and the clinic has grown to meet these many needs that Julius talked about long before I got involved. So just to clarify that. But I guess to try and, I think, answer your question, it is fabulous that so many of these important services can be provided. When you're looking at relocating, cost is always a factor. We've and as a board, we want to continue all of these services. From a cost perspective, you could look at, how much will this cost and how much will that cost. But it's been our heart and our focus really to continue with all of those. So when I was saying earlier that we all affectionately refer to Bethesda as a clinic, its correct name is a Bethesda Medical Center, and as you can see, it's really a whole collection of different clinics operating within the one area. I can imagine that in that region, anybody that's within a reasonable travel distance would have a lot of hope. That they could go and get some help at Bethesda. And here's something that I don't think I've asked anybody about. Of course, their system is going to be different in terms of insurance and costs and everything else. If a person shows up at the clinic and says, my child is sick and don't know what's wrong, what does the parent pay for that visit? What is the cost structure?
So a general consultation is 500 goods, which at the minute is about $4 I think. And then medication may be more on top of that, or different lab tests may be more on top of that. But if a parent came and only had 500 goods, we would still treat the child, give them their medicine. If someone came and only had 100 goods and were really in need, we would still also treat them regardless of how much money they had in their
You
hand.
would still do it. I think some of our American listeners are perking up and saying, maybe that's an area where I can help. So I can send some dollars, and that could actually help people get medical attention because Bethesda is providing the service anyway, and obviously there's a cost to that. So maybe some of our people would like to help out in that. Well, there are so many ways to help, but that's something that occurs to me. So, Julie, could you tell us one story about somebody that you have served? You have told a couple of other stories. Anybody else come to mind that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, just this last year in December, actually, we had a little boy who was 2 years old who was brought to the clinic by his mother. He had fallen off his bed and hit his head, and had basically gone almost unconscious. And the incident had actually taken place 2 weeks before, but the mum didn't have any money to bring him to any clinic.
Wow.
So she brought him to us and took him straight to the nurse. He was having difficulty breathing and was really almost unconscious, as I said. Both his eyes were closed, but he was also paralyzed on one side of his body, having had a head injury. We actually had a physical therapy team there at the time. So the nurse, Miss Kelly, had treated him for his breathing problems and then sent him over to us for a physical assessment. But again, not being a hospital, we don't have a CT scanner or a neurologist. And we sent his mum to a local hospital and give her the money to go and told her to come back and let us know how things had gone. This hospital just said to her, we can't do anything for you. We need to send him to Port-au-Prince. She didn't have any means to do that, so she continued to come to Bethesda. He came back a couple of weeks later. His breathing was much better. He was a little bit more alert, but he couldn't hold his head up, couldn't move his, I think it was the left side, the left arm, the left leg, couldn't sit up. And we just started to work with him in PT. And within a month, he was holding his head up, smiling, look around him, sitting up. And he continued to come until COVID, obviously. But we hope to continue working with him and hopefully get him back up standing and walking again.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. More after the break. Don't go away.
I'm Brad Swinford with Salem Concrete Paving. It's a privilege to partner with Mercy Inc., who provides hope to people around the world by meeting critical needs and introducing people to Jesus. I know that through Mercy Inc., I'm investing in God's kingdom as they spread the love and gospel of Christ around the world. So please join me in supporting Mercy Inc. and Mercy Today Radio by praying or going to their website at MercyToday.global. Thank you.
Here is Mercy Inc. Executive Director Doug Hoffman with another Mercy Minute.
Today I want to take you to Haiti. I want to talk to you about Bethesda Medical Clinic. Dr. Rodney there and his staff of 70 people, they've been around for over 60 years. And as they are there, they are making a difference in people's lives, not only physically by treating them for their medical issues, they're also bringing spiritual awareness to them. They're praying with every patient, not only at the time when they come in, but also as they're being healed. And that prayer difference is changing lives for eternity. They're leaving healed, or if they're taking medication and whatnot, they're going through that process. But if they can heal their soul for eternity, that is what Bethesda Medical Clinic is all about.
Have you been looking for new ways to grow your organization and have a lasting, eternal impact? Mercy Today has an amazing team of business professionals that have managed small businesses to large corporations, and we want to share that know-how and experience with you. We're also committed our lives to sharing the gospel with compassion and serving the practical needs of communities around the world. Partner with us and become a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at MercyToday.global.
We are back, and I have the privilege of having in studio by Zoom Barry Yungblut and Julie Edler working on the topic here, Bethesda-Caring for the Body and the Soul. So I want to get back into our questions here because what I know is that, Julie, you were on site and on staff and something happened or something was developing. You knew they needed some help, and you reached out to Barry. Can you tell us that story? What was the situation that caused you to reach out to him?
Yeah, Bethesda was in the process of becoming its own entity. We had a small board, and in 2018 we had given a very unexpected eviction notice from our current property.
That's not good.
We knew we needed to expand our board and make decisions about the future of Bethesda. And Barry and I had lived in Haiti at the same time, 2010. I knew that he had a heart for Haiti. I knew that he had a great relationship with Dr. Rodney and his vision. So we were just looking to expand the board. So I gave him a call and asked him if he would want to be on the board. And he said yes.
Oh, Barry, let's hear your side of that. You got the call, and you said, huh, what? Me?
Yeah, I was, as I mentioned, I guess previously, I was feeling pretty burned out from my other commitments, be in the church. And my plan was, my wife and my plan for me to take a year and just mentally recoup and catch up around some things around the house. Obviously, that wasn't God's plan. So, when I heard about the need and asked if I help, I really didn't feel I had a choice. And didn't know what role I was going to play. Just volunteered to start meeting and talking about how we might figure out what God's plan for the future was.
And you felt a calling. I think that's really significant because in all stages of us feeling well and all put together or exhausted or burned out or discouraged or whatever, God can enter into that space and call us to what He wants for us next. I really appreciate that. So, Barry, let me ask you, why did the needs of the Haitian people draw you in to be a part of it? I know it's a board chairmanship and there's meetings and there's decisions and all that stuff, but there's something about the needs of the Haitian people that drew you. Can you help us understand that?
Well, I think I'm trying to give you a short answer. I think God has blessed me just with an awareness and a sense of compassion, which I didn't even realize. Somebody else had pointed that out to me. Love the time that we spent in Haiti, getting to know Dr. Rodney, made friendships with several Haitians. I worked in the office. I helped out with some maintenance things. Great to meet people of faith. And my wife my wife is medical. I'm non-medical. So my wife worked in the clinic and she would relay some of the needs. But, we all grew up most of us in North America, Julie, of course, still in the Western world. And I just feel that we are so blessed to be born and raised and have so many opportunities and where God placed us. So personally, I feel an obligation, but I also feel a desire to just to reach out to our brothers and sisters around the world and love them and just help them in a way that we're able to.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. I want our listeners to be tuning into those words and saying, God, do you have something for me? Sometimes if we're just minding our own business, doing our own thing, going to work, raising the kids, whatever, we aren't asking that question. But I want to encourage our listeners to just proactively ask that question. God, do you have something for me? If not now, then when would that be? And what is it? Place it on my heart. Lead me in that direction. We're running out of time here, Julie, but when you and I talked on the phone a few days ago, you said something that really struck me, and that is that you would go anywhere the Lord leads to serve Him. Help our listeners understand what that's like and how you feel about that sort of just an open-ended blank check. God, wherever you lead, I'm going to go.
Yeah, I think the Bible is very clear that we are told to go into all the world and preach the gospel, and that's not a special command for only a few people. It's for all of us. And what that looks like is different for different people. But the attitude of being ready and willing to go anywhere the Lord leads is being obedient to that command. So for me and my family, that has meant living in Haiti over the last 4 years. I also think the Christian life is one of sacrifice, and Jesus laid down His life for us, and we can only give Him our lives back. And the Bible makes it very clear that, whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. And what God has for us is better than anything that we could have for ourselves. So even though it's hard, it's good. It's the best. What God has for you is the best.
It's the best. Absolutely. Thank you for those words. And I really want to affirm that, because you're not telling God, well, I'll serve you anywhere as long as it's, Hawaii or some nice place where everything is comfortable. So to open it up and say, God, I'll go anywhere and serve you. I want to encourage our listeners to consider that and pray that prayer. God, what do you have for me? What do you want me to do? And where would that be? Because I'm open. So Barry, let's wrap up with you. We'd like to ask you, first of all, maybe to tell a patient story, and then we'll ask you to share with our listeners some prayer requests, because you're kind of overseeing the work here, and there's a lot going on and a lot of challenges, a lot of blessings, God's provision, and we want to gather around some prayer partners here and ask them to come to the Lord with things that you request prayer for. Let's start with that patient story.
Well, Dan, I got to take a liberty here and tell you two quick stories.
Two
the
for
first
one.
one is kind of fun.
Okay.
February, we were in Haiti for our annual board meeting, and it was just on my heart. There's always so many things to do, but it was just on my heart to go into the clinic and to meet some patients and hear firsthand why they were there, what brought them there.
Yeah.
And the story was often the same, but this one mother and son I met, I asked her the question through an interpreter, and she just said, well, I initially came here because I was sick, and then when I got better, that's why I come back now. So we were through the conversation, we were talking about Bethesda and why she comes, and she said she got very passionate about it, and she said, this is actually not Bethesda, this is my clinic. I come here because this is my clinic.
Oh, fantastic.
So we all had a good laugh. Her son was being treated and he was feeling better. And it was just a great opportunity to hear firsthand about why patients come. Yes. And the fact that she just had so much attachment for Bethesda.
I'm hearing, Barry, from both you and Julie and Dave, that a lot of people might feel that way. This is my home. This is my clinic. This is where I go. This is where my friends are. This is where I get help. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's true. I teased her a little bit. I said, do we need to put your name on it? The other story I want to share is really a much more serious story. As we were walking through the clinic, it was the end of the day. There were fewer patients there, and we walked by a young woman who was lying down on a bench. And she was actually had her head resting in another young woman's lap. And we walked past, and I said to Dr. Rodney, can we just go back? I just want to understand what's happening. Yeah. And she had been progressively ill for quite some time. She couldn't really sit up. She had a handkerchief on her head. She was very thin. She was a tall young woman, very thin. And I could see on her shins, she had quite a few of exposed sores, some of them healing and so on. Clearly, as I said before, I'm non-medical. There's nothing I can do. She was getting at the lab, providing some lab samples, but it was just really on my heart. So we went back and we talked to her, and her sister actually explained that she had been 4 years, been progressively ill, and they had been to other places, including witch doctors, as Julie has referred to before, and she progressively worse. So she came to Bethesda, and there was really nothing I could do. We knelt down and we prayed, and I got the sense that they weren't really believers, but it was on my heart to kneel down and pray with her. We asked permission to sort of lay a hand and pray, and we did that for a few minutes. And it just really, I don't know what happened in her life after that. I mean, spiritually, I know that she was diagnosed with HIV, and she was getting medicine, and she was getting better. But, that really hit me. And I go back to the story that I shared earlier about growing up in North America with so many blessings. I have a daughter who's the younger daughter's just around that age. And to think of her being that sick for 4 years is, it's too much. It's too much that anybody should have to deal with. Anyway, that's the story.
Well, that really touched you, obviously. When we can put ourselves or our family members into a situation like that and understand that throughout Haiti, thousands and thousands of people are experiencing similar things. That's why I would imagine it would be a great joy and great fulfillment for you to have that instrumental part in bringing the success and the expansion and continuing development of the services of those people through your role as chairman of the board of Bethesda. So thank you for sharing that. It obviously, it tugs at your heart, and it did mine, and I think it will others of our listeners too. When you see your daughter there, in this other patient, it's not okay with us, right? So we're motivated to help out and to do something. So Barry Yungblut and Julie Edler, thank you very much for being with us today. And our time is up, but we're just going to wrap it up here. And remember that we have afterwards, which will be a podcast portion. So if you're listening to this show on a podcast, then we're just going to keep rolling. If you're listening to it on the radio, then you want to go to our website, it is MercyToday.global, and that's where you'll find. We are heard around the clock and around the world. We have lots of podcast outlets, and we are broadcast at our flagship station in Salem, Oregon. But we've been talking to Barry Yungblut and Julie Edler. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. We've been talking about the subject caring for the body and the soul. So I know you guys are going to get back to work as soon as possible, as soon as some of the restrictions get lifted, and we hope that that's soon. But we'll just trust God's timing, and I know you guys are going to be just hustling and doing your stuff and serving God and loving people, and I really appreciate that. Any last word from either of you?
Just thank you for having us and allowing us to share our excitement and the activities and the project. And that's it.
That's it. Great. Thank you both. Julie, we didn't have time to get you in there, but I really appreciate both of you sharing. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
Now's the time to become a part of something greater in our community. You and your organization can partner with Mercy Today and change the lives of thousands around the world. Our team of business professionals can also come alongside you and help you grow your organization to maximize your impact. Our goal is to help you increase your quadruple bottom line: people, planet, profit, and purpose. Consider being a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at MercyToday.global. What's one of the best ways to increase your market share? People want to do business with organizations that provide excellent products and services and give back to their community. As a sponsor of Mercy Today, we can help you do both, and we'd be honored to partner with you to share your story with our listeners. Let our team of seasoned business professionals help you grow your organization so that you can have its maximum kingdom impact. Visit our website and learn how to be a sponsor at MercyToday.global.
This is Doug Hoffman, Executive Director for Mercy, Inc. Just thanking you for listening to MercyToday.global.
It's been really good talking to Barry and Julie about the fantastic work that God is doing there in that little island out there in the Caribbean, Haiti, and the Bethesda Medical Center. And so if you have questions about the work that's going on there, or about them or anybody else on the team, or about Dr. Rodney, who we have mentioned several times, we just were not able to get him hooked up with our show for today. But do get in touch with us. Go to MercyToday.global. You can ask questions. You can make suggestions. You can just give us a high five, give us encouragement. We just love this work, and we love talking about what God is doing. So we really would like to be in your inbox. We will deliver a link to the show and other updates and features and stuff. So we'd love to have you do that. So thank you for listening today. This is Mercy Today Radio, telling the story of how compassion changes everything. God bless you, my friend. Goodbye for now. Yeah, thank you for hanging around with us and hanging in there as we move into the afterwards portion of our podcast here. This is stuff that is not heard on the radio. That's why we want to invite people to come into this special room, and we've got a little bit more from Julie and a little bit more from Barry, because we talk about stuff that means a lot to them, and they're passionate about what they do, and they've got lots to share. But we're going to just take a few extra minutes here. And so toward the end of the recent radio portion, I asked Julie the question about her comment was pretty caught my attention, because she said that she would go anywhere the Lord leads, and she talked about how meaningful that is, and how her heart is open to go wherever and do whatever God assigns to her. And then the other question is, well, Julie, we have got a lot of listeners. Would you recommend that approach to people that are listening? How would you answer that question?
Yeah, of course I would. So I can't say that the past 4 years, I mean, I first started going to Haiti in 2008, so I could even say the past 12 years have been easy at all. In fact, my husband and I have a bit of a joke at the end of every year. We're like, oh, that was a hard year. And then at the end of the next year, we say, that was a hard year. But God has really brought us through so many difficult circumstances. Through going to Haiti, I've seen people healed. I've seen people become Christians, and I've experienced the joy of helping people physically at Bethesda. And I get so many people that say to me, oh, I could never do what you're doing. And the reality is, on my own, that I can't do it. But when you're willing to be obedient to what God is asking you to do, then He will equip you and will do things with your life that you would never have even imagined. I mean, I never imagined I would be on a radio show in Oregon, never mind, serving in Haiti. I mean, there's just so many things that God has done with my life that I would never have imagined that I would have done.
Well, Julie, I just, even though the radio station is in Oregon, I hope that this podcast makes its way around the globe, because I want people to hear that you are rewarded, you're satisfied, you're thrilled, you're happy, you're seeing God do some wonderful things in and through your life. And I think it's exactly the right recommendation, is just let it go. It really is an open obedience. It's a writing the blank check and say, God, whatever you want. I want people all over the world to hear that. Thank you very much for that. And then you had a story maybe that we could finish your portion with, another patient story. Yeah,
and maybe this is one of those circumstances that I never would have thought I found myself in. A couple of years ago, I had a young man come to see me at the clinic who had been shot in the head. He was at a party and had gotten shot.
Wow.
He was very sick. His family actually took him to Port-au-Prince, the capital city, to get a CT scan, and the doctor basically said, there's nothing we can do. If we operate and remove the bullet, he's going to die.
Wow.
If we don't do anything, he's going to die. So the family chose to take him home and keep him comfortable. But over time, he began to regain consciousness. He started to move. Some of the effects of being shot was he had some neurological problems in his arm and his leg, and his family really wanted to take him to a witch doctor to see if they could get him better. But his brother was a Christian, actually attended English classes at the OMS campus, and the English teacher said, well, we have this physical therapist, why don't you take him there? So he came, and on his first appointment, I was couldn't believe the story that he was telling me, that he was actually alive, sitting there in front of me. So as I was treating him, I was chatting, and I said, it's really a miracle that you're alive, and God must really have a plan for your life.
Oh, yeah.
And as we talked, it became apparent that he actually didn't believe that he had been shot. He thought that someone had put a curse on him, and that's why he had this disability. And his brother and I talked to him and said, the doctor has seen the bullet on an x-ray. How can you not believe? And we just kept chatting, and I started to share the gospel with him. But one of the things that we don't really learn when you're studying a new language is words like bullets and guns and curse and things like that. And I could sense the Holy Spirit was talking to him, speaking to him, and I just felt a little bit out of my depth in terms of culture and around the voodoo and things. So I asked him if he would be willing to speak to another member of our staff, Pastor Daniel, who's our x-ray technician, also a pastor, and connected the two of them together, and that young man gave his life to the Lord that day.
Wow.
And continued to walk in the church and continued to come for physio for his physical problems. But, from going from someone's put a curse on me, I don't believe I've been shot, to getting saved all in one day, it was just brilliant.
Beautiful story. God is at work for sure. Thank you for sharing that. And I know if we have another episode, and I'd like to do that, Julie, you have more stories. And again, and you say it so well, you are obediently serving, you're using talents and training and skills that God has given you, but it's really God at work. I mean, who else can touch a heart like that man? Mm-hmm. So, and you're an instrument of his healing and of his message. And that's beautiful. I want our people to hear that and to say, man, can I have some rewarding experiences like that? And God to say, sign up, let's go. We've got some for you. So I think everybody that does serve like that with a willing heart and an obedient spirit, God will fill that with some amazing things. It may not always be a bullet in the head, but it'll be something. And we all have that. I'm seeing some smiles here in the studio because we know what we're talking about. So, and I just want to circle back around with Julie a little bit. And she says, yes, if you're thinking about giving God the okay to plant you, to use you, to move you, to inspire you, to equip you, just say yes. And I guarantee, and I'm sure Julie and Barry and Doug and Dave and the other Dave, the engineer, they would all say, yeah, do it. It is absolutely the best life to live. Nobody says it's easy, but it is the very best life. Barry, there are prayer needs, things that our listeners can come together and agree with you in prayer. So could you list some of those, and then we'll wrap up our afterwards here. But let's have you list the things that you would invite our listeners to pray about.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share those. As we said earlier in the show, God has been providing in many cases beyond our expectations, beyond our own plans, and it's not all, as you know, it doesn't all just roll out, the red carpet in front of you. Some of it takes time. We're all challenged with discouragement sometimes or puzzlement, but we just keep trying to move forward. As we've talked about, we just together as a group, we try and encourage each other. We try and pray on a regular basis. And so thank you for the opportunity just to share some of those prayer requests.
Absolutely.
So as we said, God is providing on the property and some of the funds for those, and and engineering and architect. And so I'm going to ask for Julie's help, but two things that kind of stand out to me for current prayer requests are the fundraising. We have a small team, and Mercy is a major partner in that. But there's lots of missions and ministries going on with that. So we would love to have more volunteers come onto that fundraising team. We don't know how God's going to provide, whether through the existing team or foundations or more visits with churches or personal connections. So that's a different world. That's not a world that I live in. But I know that there's people out there who would live in that world, and we would just the prayer request is for the right people to hear that and maybe inquire about joining our fundraising team. And really the same goes for doctors. We have a number of medical people on our board, and we have a number of teams, and it would be great if we could get some medical doctors, whether they have experience in developing countries or whether they're family physicians or sort of urgent care physicians. It would be a huge blessing if we were a couple people were sort of led to join Bethesda in those two areas.
And Barry, you're talking about regarding the doctors, about joining the board so they bring medical expertise, or actually being able to go to Haiti and work at Bethesda for some periods of time?
Well, I guess I'm probably thinking more of the former. We do have a clinic operation team that we want to get around and support all the medical people there and work on continuous improvement. Of course, being a medical organization, it would be great to have a few more medical people on the board. But there's always opportunity. If somebody's really interested, we can find ways, and there's always trips going on. So that's also possible.
Excellent. I think we probably have a stash of photos and videos that are available or could be available. So for our listeners, maybe you go to our website and we'll be putting those up there. So you've heard about Bethesda. Now you want to go there visually with some of the great stories, the great things. And we've got a building project underway. So that sounds like a lot of exciting development when these people step out in faith, which is what Mercy does with Doug Hoffman and all the partners, is just stepping out in faith and trusting God because He's called us to serve Him and He's going to provide. And so it's really fun to watch that happen. So we're going to finish this afterwards. So give Julie one last chance. Is there anything else you'd like to wrap up with, Julie?
Just off the back of what Barry said there, a quick story. A few years ago, Dr. Rodney that's our director, was feeling really overwhelmed at the responsibility and the just needed more help. And he prayed to God, and God said to him, I'm going to send you people. I'm going to send lots and lots and lots of people. And that's really what we need, is lots and lots and lots of people. And God's given Dr. Rodney the promise. And that's what we're praying for, is lots of people to get on board and help us, not only just to move and build this new clinic to serve more people and help more people to be physically and spiritually healed. That's what we want to do, and we want to get more people involved. So yeah, no, I think that's it really.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm going to repeat again that when things open up, we'll be organizing some trips to Haiti and to Bethesda. We're not able to provide any information or dates or anything now, but if you're on our subscriber list, we'll keep you up to date on those things. And I'm looking forward to going there, to be there on site, to meet Dr. Rodney, and to see the amazing work that God is doing there. So let us know that you're interested just in being notified when a trip does open up, because I know when you get a person there, they get hooked. And for raising up people like Barry, what you were saying, and for Julie, just the prayer of bringing people. So they make a trip, and then they're kind of hooked, and they love those Haitian people. So that is it for now. Thank you again very much, Barry and Julie. We're going to check out of this afterwards, and you can hear the whole thing on both of the podcasts. So take care.